Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Listening Path. If you've been following along, I did plan to have week 3 last week. It's now February the 9th, and the irony is I'm doing a series about listening skills, and I have had uber problems with the audio. So apologies for having this up a week late, and fingers crossed, this one all goes smooth. If this is your first time here, I do have a playlist called Self-Help. The entire Listening Path series will be there. I have an introduction that talks about the program, any of the supplies that you may wish to use to do your own recording, and future videos about any self-help books or programs I do will be there as well. A quick recap. In week 1, we were focusing on the sounds in our environment, and part of that chapter had to do with a storm that was coming into Julia's area and how her little dog Lily was responding to that. Week 2 was about listening to others, and that was quite a lengthy chapter, which I did suggest perhaps taking 2 weeks to do, especially if you have the book, because there's quite a bit of reading and a number of exercises to that. This week, week number 3 of the program, we're focusing on listening to our higher selves and the messages that we get in various ways. The focus throughout this chapter is Julia talking about her garden as well as the snow, and again some focus on her sweet little dog Lily. This chapter has 30 pages and 10 exercises. Now, I will only be reading 4 of the exercises to give you an idea of some of the activities, but if you have your own copy of the book, then by all means pick and choose which exercises you wish to do. This chapter begins on page 113. We've had all the experience of knowing something was right for us or knowing that it was not. The tools of this week will help us learn to tune into that greater knowing part of ourselves and to assess it whenever we need to for decisions big or small. The still small voice. The next steps on the listening path involve listening to our own higher guidance. Pen in hand, we ask the universe, what shall I do about your question? We pose our question and then we listen for a response. When I teach, I call this tool Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're inviting the guidance of an older and wiser self. The guidance we receive may surprise us. It may be simpler and more direct than our normal thinking. Many of us are accustomed to seeking guidance from others. We trust others to be more objective than ourselves. We seldom seek our own counsel. We do not realize that we ourselves may be wise, so we have trouble trusting the guidance that comes to us from within. It takes practice to seek and hear our own highest wisdom. Prayer helps us to be certain of our path. Please guard and guide me, we may ask, listening for the guidance that comes to us. Please give us knowledge of your will for us and the power to carry it out. We pray further. Trusting that our guidance marries our will to the Creator's. As theologian Ernest Holmes assures us, we are part of God and God is part of us. When we seek our own counsel, we are seeking God's as well. Our inner resource is the divine spark within each of us. I'm going to stop briefly there and just give a reminder that although Julia Cameron uses the word God throughout the book and her programs, The Artist Way as well, she also talks in the introduction of don't get caught up in the semantics. Sadly, because of a number of, both current events at the moment and historical events, the word God may just get people the wrong way. Plus, people each have their own spiritual and religious paths. Stay true to your own path. And I've also mentioned before, whether it's the listening path or any of these self-help type of programs, fine-tune and tweak them to make them work within your own life. After all, the goal of doing something like this is self-development and personal growth. And in order for that to be successful, you need to find and incorporate what's going to work best for you and what makes the most sense for you. Now, on page 116, Julia is talking about asking particular questions when she's not sure about something. Many times we're guided to take actions that seem gentle. Other times we're guided to take no action at all. I have a set of questions that I use as a spot check inventory. The questions are simple, but the answers they provide are often profound. Facing any troubling situation, ask yourself, 1. What do I need to know? 2. What do I need to accept? 3. What do I need to try? 4. What do I need to grieve? And 5. What do I need to celebrate? Julia goes on to give the example of answers with these questions in relation to asking about writing this program. So her answer for number 1, what did she need to know? That she's doing well. What did she need to accept? That she had wisdom to share. Question 3, what did she need to try? Try writing your first thoughts. Question number 4, what did she need to grieve? Time wasted second guessing herself. I want to stop briefly on question number 4 and the issue of grief. Often when you hear the word grief, people think of the obvious, the loss of a loved one, human or fur, and there are a number of steps to that grieving process. People tend to forget that grief also involves things like the loss of a friendship, the loss of a job, which may or may not have been by our choice, but you're still leaving coworkers and a situation. So grief takes many forms and relates to not just the death of a loved one, but a variety of circumstances in our life, as Julia demonstrates here with getting over the grief of time wasted, constantly second guessing herself. Question number 5, what did she need to celebrate? That she's done 6 chapters. I'll put those 5 questions into the description box down below if you wish to try them out for various things you may be asking about in your own life. In the introduction video, I did mention picking a form of journaling that works for you, whether that's doing it old school by hand or if you're using technology. I will be starting the program hopefully this week. What's holding me up? Deciding how I want to do my journaling. I'm still debating about setting it up in a binder because after this I'll be moving on to The Artist's Way, which I've already completed twice. This will be my third time doing that 12-week program. So I've read the listening path through twice now. I'll be going through it a third time to actually pick and choose the different exercises along the way. Let me know in the comments down below whether you have done the listening path program before, whether you're doing any of the exercises yet, or if you do like I do and read the books from front to back first and then go back and work through the different exercises and activities. Part of the reason I now do that is I've been doing this type of work for 20, maybe 30 years. And there are some programs that I really enjoy, like The Artist's Way that I've done more than once. There are some others that I've read through them and I just know they're definitely not for me. But there was some information throughout the book that I did find helpful. Continuing on page 117, choose faith over fear. For many of us, a novel idea. We're accustomed to listening to what might be called our inner critic, who's always ready with a negative. My inner critic is called Nigel. I've lived with Nigel for 50 plus years. I picture him as a gay British interior decorator with impossibly high standards. Nothing I write is ever good enough to suit Nigel. He always has some damning criticism. Over the years, I've learned to discount Nigel. I'm used to his piping up loudly whenever my work is original or brave. All of us have our own Nigel, the critic who urges us to stop in our tracks, frozen by fear. Naming your critic, making it a cartoon character, greatly diminishes its power. It helps to remember that when you're at your best, your Nigel will do his worst. Let us say you have an original sentence, a zebra of a sentence. Instead of saying appreciatively, "Wow, stripes, how dashing," your Nigel will say, "Stripes are ridiculous. Who ever heard of stripes?" If you listen to Nigel, you strip off the stripes. If you discount Nigel, you may have a whole herd of zebras all gaily striped. Try trusting yourself. The zebra that's just your imagination deserves to stay and is quite marvelous. Pen in hand, you can hear the positive, but still, the listening path requires faith. Faith leads us forward. Faith bolsters our shaky self-confidence. If the positive you hear is just your imagination, more power to it. On page 119, Julia goes on to talk about the difference between listening to your head and your heart. Now, both are important, but as she mentions, listening to your head is that logical part of ourselves. Listening to our heart goes much deeper. And on page 119, she says, seeking our own highest wisdom, we must trust what we hear. As we ask for guidance, we will be guided, but we must trust the guidance that appears. What should I do about our question? The answer that comes to us may be far simpler than our intellect would suggest. When we try to figure out the answer to our problem, we habitually turn to our mind and not our heart. Yet it's the heart that holds our greatest wisdom. And so we must learn to ask, what does my heart say about this matter? It's a habit for many of us to listen with our head and not our heart. Make no mistake, the head is useful, but it's often misleading. Clever, it takes a glib and superficial stance. The heart, by contrast, goes far deeper. It has wisdom our intellect may lack. A point that I would like to make, especially if you're new to this type of work of self-development and personal growth, is that when we ask for guidance and we ask questions, the answer may take a while to come through. And when I say a while, I mean it could be several minutes, it could even be a day or two. And depending on how you do the process, some people may meditate and get their answers that way. Other people may use oracle cards, as I do. And again, we're part of the process of selecting those cards and finding our answers. Sometimes your answer may come in the form of a song that you suddenly hear, a person who comes into your life at just the right time with information that you needed. So there's many ways to get the responses, and they may not be immediate. So keep that in mind as well, because you really do need to pay attention to what's going on in your life and the various ways information comes through for you. And that may be different for each of us. So, again, be kind and patient with yourself. If you're trying this for the first time and you're asking for that guidance, but you're not feeling like you're getting the information, give it a day or two and try again. On page 120, Julia continues, a life led by intellect may be smart, but shallow. Intellect frequently goes for a short-term win, while the heart is given to the long term. It's wise rather than smart. As we work to lead a more heartfelt life, our intellect will fight us every step of the way. Of course it will. It's accustomed to being the boss. And now we're asking it to step aside, allowing our heart to be our primary guide. We're asking a different set of questions. Instead of, is this the smart route? We're now asking, is this route the wisest? The answers to these questions are often considerably different. Our heart may nudge us in a novel direction, while our intellect will dictate the tried and true. Asking ourselves for the wisest, not the smartest path, we find ourselves turning to our intuition. The hunch and the inkling become our friends. We come to depend on them. This new reliance on our hearts yields us a more comfortable life. No longer trying to be shrewd, we set aside the ego, which was so invested in being smart and clever. In place of the ego, we find ourselves checking in emotionally. We do what feels right and turns out to be right after all. There's something I could say there, considering current events and what we're seeing across the world about certain individuals who are all ego and not just in one country or in one position or job. So keep that in mind as well. Ego is not your best friend or anyone else's for that matter. And that's why personal work, self-development, and personal growth is so important. Continuing on, make no mistake, the intellect will not relinquish its kingpin position without a fuss. Hearing the heart's new power, it will round up all available weapons, and chief among these weapons is well-placed doubt. The heart asks us to trust ourselves. The intellect tells us we can't be trusted. And the intellect has secondary tools, words used against the heart, words like naive and foolish. Comfortably ensconced as the leader, the intellect declares itself sophisticated and shrewd. It attacks the heart as childish. It declares the heart embarrassing. Its scorn is scathing. Accustomed as we are to listening to the intellect, we must now teach ourselves discernment. We must ask ourselves just which voice we're listening to. The intellect is a bully. It wants to have its way to win. The heart has a gentle voice, calm but insistent. With practice, we learn to discern it. We ask ourselves, is this the voice of faith or fear? The heart is an optimist. The intellect is a pessimist. We're conditioned to listen to the intellect, which entertains itself with dark imaginings. The heart has a lighter tone. It is not naive, foolish, or childish, as the intellect accuses. It's spiritual, connected to divine wisdom, to higher forces which intend us well. The intellect is harsh, snippy, cutting. The heart is tender. The intellect is sharp-edged, while the heart is soft. The intellect forces its way where the heart cajoles. Faced with the decision, we must constantly practice listening to the heart. Depending on the intellect is a grooved habit. We must learn to ask ourselves, is my listening mere habit, or am I listening to something deeper and truer? When we listen beyond habit, the heart speaks to us, and it does so softly and with persistence. As we listen to the heart, our life takes on a wiser and healthier tone. In time, we come to prefer it. Again, all of this takes practice, and key words there are about that self-doubt and that questioning. And that's why part of this is also about building up your self-worth, self-respect, and trusting that you're moving forward. Between page 127 and 129, Julia is sharing about anxiety, and she has to take a trip. She travels quite a bit as she does talks, book signings, a variety of other things throughout her career. Flying makes her anxious. Her way of calming herself down is to focus on gratitude, that she's able to get on a plane and go visit friends around the country, as well as go and do various speaking engagements and connect with people who have read her books, done her programs, or attended her classes. During this chapter, Julia again shares some of her conversations with different friends that she's had over the decades. In this chapter, she talks to a writer, a painter, a minister, a physical trainer, and a realtor. They each share how listening to their higher selves has helped them throughout their lives, not just on a personal level, but how they interact with their clients, friends, and coworkers as well. The exercises that I want to share from this week, first on page 121, choose a topic on which you need guidance. Pose your question and then listen for a response. Do not discount what you hear as just your imagination. After all, your imagination is a wonderful thing. On page 127, reading a book is a form of listening. You hear what the author has to say. Some books are wise. The author is said to be inspired. Select a book that holds wisdom for you. Dip into it 3 times a day, allowing your spirit to be nurtured. Let the wise author talk to you. Read Rumi or Kabir, or choose an author of your own liking. Enjoy. Now, I've never read Rumi or Kabir. I have a number of different books that I can certainly pick up and do that with. Let me know if there's an author or a particular book that you're thinking of that would be helpful for that exercise. On page 130, choose a topic on which you frequently experience anxiety. Try, if you can, to choose an area where you've historically struggled to find peace. Now ask your higher self for guidance on this subject. Listen for what you hear. You may wish to write out this guidance. Is your guidance calmer, more encouraging, and more optimistic than your anxious thoughts might have suggested? Do you sense a shift from anxiety to gratitude, calm, or optimism as you listen for encouragement? This exercise is one that I would personally do with an oracle deck. So I have my question, I shuffle the cards. I personally believe it's our own energy combined with universe that provides those answers when we pick our card. And I, yes, do journal when I do those readings and selections, and I do review them down the road. I've always personally had good luck with them, whether it's the images in the card or the message on the card. I've always found that helpful. Let me know if you use oracle decks to answer some of your questions, if you're comfortable doing that. On page 139, slow your pace and listen for revelations. Acknowledge that hurry equals worry and slow equals no. I think that one is really important because people tend to race, busy, busy through their lives. And it's interesting to me that here we are in the 21st century when things were, well, supposed to be a lot different than they are currently in February 2026. The pace was supposed to be slower. We were supposed to have time to enjoy life, slow down, smell the roses. And yet people seem to be racing around far more than I certainly remember in my younger years. I've also noticed that quite often, if you don't slow down, the universe will slow you down. And that may come in the form of something happening. It may be an illness. So it's always better to choose your own way of slowing down for a bit, resetting some priorities, and moving forward. The chapter always ends with a check-in. Have you kept up with your morning pages, artist dates, and walks? I haven't started doing morning pages, and honestly, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that because my form of journaling is a brain dump and contemplation, which is somewhat like her morning pages. It's just I don't write 3 pages every day. I just kind of get out of my head what I need to. Let me know if you've ever tried morning pages and if you found them helpful. I did them the first couple times I did the artist way. They just don't seem to work for me. Artist dates. I haven't scheduled anything, but I did at least start knitting again this week, so yay me. And walks. In the program, she suggests 2 20-minute walks a week. I have been getting out and about in my yard, not just to make updated yard tour videos, but I enjoy getting outside, seeing nature, and just, being outdoors. Although, and you can tell I've got a warm sweater on today, it's very cold here these days with the wind chill, so you definitely have to bundle up to get out there. What have you discovered in consciously listening to the still small voice? Do you find that you feel more connected to yourself? Do you experience resistance? Were you able to resist it? Now, I don't have a name for my inner critic, although it definitely is there. So, as I work through this week specifically, I may actually come up with a name for that. You're not smart enough, you're not capable, and what are you doing making videos anyway? Voice. Name one memorable experience of listening, and what was the aha that came from it for you? That concludes week number 3. If you're following along and doing the program, I hope that you're enjoying it and finding some wonderful moments and great things about yourself. Week number 4, we move on to listening beyond the veil. And yes, as the title suggests, it is listening to our loved ones who are no longer here with us in physical form. Fingers crossed, as I now finish recording and start the editing, that there were no audio glitches. And from here on, we're going forward and upward. Be well, be safe, and big hugs.